It's 104.7 The Drop. We are the People Station for R&B and Hip Hop. A very good morning to you. SugaBear's Community Corner. This is something that we do here where we get to highlight people in the community or maybe even coming to the community, serving this great community that we live in. Very special guest today. She is the eldest daughter of Muhammad Ali, a legend. We're talking about legendary. Her name is Maryum Ali. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So honored.
Oh, it's our honor. Thank you so much for being here. And we also have another special guest, Ayana Contreras. Good morning. She is our new program director. In fact, good morning. Okay, all right.
I'm incognito today.
Okay, that's funny. Thank you for being here, making a little time. I know you said you come out here a lot, right?
I do. I have cousins out here, a few cousins, and my cousin Rahim Ali. He's actually on my mother's side.
Oh, nice.
He had
Okay.
converted to Islam and took the name Ali. He's the imam at the Northeast Denver Islamic Center. So I would come out here annually for their fundraisers and visit them. And I love Denver. Denver's a relaxed, cool place.
Yeah, there's a cool little vibe here. I mean, I'm trying to get used to this weather, and I know Chicago is kind of home for you as well as you, Ayana. So this weather, I'm trying to still adjust to, but it's cold out here.
Yeah,
so.
it's not. I mean, it's in Chicago. As long as it's not below, is in the teens. We're happy.
Yeah, that's about the end of it.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about a little bit later. There's an event that's happening that you're going to be at. We'll get to those details, but I want to get into your life a little bit. Reading your bio, which,
Yes.
you know, this is kind of new to me. I saw that you were a comedian for 10 years.
Over 10, about 15.
About 15
Yeah.
years. And then also you had a music career.
I sure did. Very short, but
Okay.
yeah.
How did that happen? How did you get discovered?
Well, I kind of discovered myself, actually. No one really put me on. I've always been kind of a funny kid, and I lived in L.A. at the time, and I used to go to the comedy clubs, and I was already making my friends laugh, and I went to the Comedy Store in the late 80s and became a regular. In my first audition, I already had 15 minutes of material, and I did it for 15 years. I worked with a lot of the great comedians, Chris Rock and the Wayans and Martin Lawrence when they weren't discovered, and toured around, and yeah, it was fun. I mean, comedy gave me a lot of things that I use today in public speaking and just being able to speak in front of people. It's the hardest thing you could ever do, and yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I love comedy, so thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And then the music career, like you said, we don't get into it too much, right?
No, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I loved hip hop. You know, I loved I wrote raps and poetry like any other kid. I was fascinated when Rapper's Delight came out. It blew my mind. But, you know, I was in it to really be a positive role model for young people. That was my agenda. Yeah. And in the 90s, I saw that was not the agenda for record labels with regards to young African Americans. There was another agenda, and all of this stuff out with, you know, talking about the industry and the grooming. I mean, I saw that. I saw the Me Too stuff early on and said, no, I don't want to be in those situations. Mm-hmm. And there was just something else going on in the industry in general that as a Muslim woman, I knew I would have to eventually sacrifice my values to stay in it. So I split and said, hey, if I want to impact kids, do it as a social worker. And so I worked in gang communities for another 15 years in South Los Angeles.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a great segue. Working with children, your social and human services service that you do. How did you get into that?
Because I always my trajectory of life was to be an impact on youth, and I wanted to do it through music because I did love the arts. I'm an artist at heart, but before I left this earth, I said I want to make a real impact on youth in a real way. Yeah. And I had a cousin, Otto Ali, who was murdered in gang violence in Chicago in the 90s. He wasn't in a gang, his friend was, and they both got killed in their car. And that's when I decided to really go into that specific area of juvenile delinquency, gang prevention, youth development work. Yeah, so that's how I got into it.
That's a beautiful thing. And the impact of being able to talk to children, give them something, and their parents as well.
Yeah,
right?
They need, workers out there. Everyone isn't created equally. You need people, when you work with these youth, you really have to love them for real. Because they sense it, they know it, and you can harm them if you don't. If it's just a paycheck, whether it's a teacher, a counselor, whomever, a coach, you can do major harm to them if you don't love them. Yeah. And so I had that capacity to love unconditionally, even, they would give me the roughest cases because I had kids stealing my stuff, and I still welcomed them back. It's like,
course.
okay, I love you, but we can't be, you can't steal from me now,
Right.
So they sense that, and I felt I've impacted a lot of kids being that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you're also a keynote speaker, so you do a lot of speaking engagement.
Yeah.
Do you speak to children as well?
Yeah, so when I was in that field for a while, and my last job was at the mayor's office at the gang department, I just wanted to share what I learned. And I usually speak at social and human service organizations, their conferences or fundraisers, for the most part. Sometimes I speak on my dad and Parkinson's disease advocacy, but usually it's social work, human services kind of talks at organizations and departments.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And everywhere that you speak, I mean, I know you mentioned your father. If you're just tuning in here, Maryum Ali is here. She's the eldest daughter of Muhammad Ali. His legacy, I told earlier, I said the word that is profound that I want you to think about is legacy. The legacy that now you're carrying, and all of your siblings. That has to mean a lot to you to be able to do that and speak in front of people who loved your father so much.
Yeah, I've always welcomed and embraced him and people's love for him. I never saw it as living in the shadow. I know it's hard for a lot of kids with an iconic parent or even a famous parent on any level. But we were always taught that this whole thing is a mirage. It's not the fame thing and the money. It's materialism. And as a spiritual family, we're living here to please our Creator. We're not living here to please the Joneses or to please Instagram.
That's right.
And we were taught that many, many years ago. So the love for him is a blessing, So a lot of people don't have their fathers. Their fathers are incarcerated, dead, addicted. I mean, I'm grateful for everything I have, and it's the legacy is it's important to carry on that legacy. It really is.
You are a spitting image of. I mean, just the first time meeting, you get that a lot. You say, it's a beautiful thing.
My father used to tell a joke. He says, I tried to deny her in court, but the judge looked at us and said guilty.
You even sound like him. That's insane.
It's funny? I do, but if you met my mother, me and my mother have the exact same voice.
Really?
I do sound like my dad, but I guess my parents were like siblings. They looked alike and sound alike. So, but if you heard my mom's voice, it's the exact same.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing to hear you speak that. It is so awesome. I want to mention something real quick, and now, Ayanna, then you can jump in here. We do a segment here every Thursday called Therapy Thursday, where we give therapy and have conversations that may be difficult for a lot of people, especially us of color.
Yes.
And we have engagement, people call in and whatnot. So on that note, I want to ask, how's your mental health, and how do you take care of it?
It's phenomenal.
Awesome.
And I have to just be honest. I'm not doing a commercial for my faith. I'm a Muslim through and through.
Okay.
I try to pray 5 times a day. And they say meditation, prayer, looking at yourself, beyond what this world offers, the big, larger purpose, knowing how to handle challenges. This world, which in Islam we call the dunya, this world, it has a hold on you, and it's materialism, and you just have to recover. I'm definitely advocate for mental health and therapy. Unfortunately, therapy is not affordable for a lot of people.
True.
It should be. It should be very affordable, and people need it. And there's excellent strategies and theories and ideologies in therapy that can really ground you. So anyone talking, definitely, ground yourself in something, whether it's faith or, talking to your aunts, your relatives or the elders.
Yes,
talk to
the elders,
we
for
don't
sure.
tap into them enough.
Yes.
Our grandparents and great-grandparents are home alone, sitting alone, and especially the ones that are verbal, talk to them.
Yes.
They've lived through a lot. So, but thank God, it's my mental health is excellent.
I love to hear that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Anyone out there listening, take care of your mental health.
Yeah.
So just slight switch over. I'm curious about this because one of the things you talked about is sort of how we are sort of in the world but not of the world. And that's also something that was important to your father, to be active and to really but not be that guy.
Right.
So one thing I was reading a biography about your father. And one of the interesting quotes, thinking about the King holiday coming up and everything, a lot of people they think of your father as an activist, but don't understand how impactful some of the stances that he took were on other people in the activist community. And this quote might knock you out. Okay,
Right.
so Andrew Young, at that time, he was executive director of the SCLC, we're talking about 67, 68,
Right.
said that Ali's stance may have played a part in Martin Luther King Jr.'s decision to publicly oppose the war in Vietnam. Says, quote, "It was about the same time that Muhammad declared that he was a conscientious objector that Martin began to say, 'I can't segregate my conscience.'"
Right.
I mean, thinking about that.
That's interesting because I have that in my presentation, that same exact thing.
Wow.
One of the board members of SCLC said MLK came back and said, Ali, did this. I have to say something. And what's beautiful was that my dad looked at MLK's position during the bus boycott and saw the sacrifices he made, and that could have impacted him for even coming out as
Wow,
well. So
okay.
they respected each other and influenced each other. But that's interesting. A lot of people don't know that.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
A great quote. What's that book right there,
The
by
book is Ali, A Life by Jonathan Igg.
Yeah.
So it's real thick.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things
Thick
there.
book, a lot
Yeah.
of stuff.
I can feel your energy, like when you're hearing quote like that about your father. That puts you through something, doesn't it? Did it make you feel something? Not in a bad way, but
Yeah, no. Actually, I was lit up because I found something similar after my father passed. The board member of SCLC actually said it wasn't even might. He did come out because of that. And so when he passed, he kind of revealed that, which is I just found that out 2 weeks ago. So that's why I lit up, because I'm like, she found it in another book.
how cool is that?
Yeah.
That's kismet. So I have to tell a quick story about, I never got to meet your father, but I was at the BET Awards once, some years ago, and they cleared the hallway and moved everyone out the way, and everyone had to stand to the side, and it was like, the champ is coming through, the champ is coming through. But I just remember in that
I was
moment.
with him.
Were
I was
you?
with him. Yeah, I remember that because he doesn't usually go to the BET Awards, and I was with him when
Steve Harvey was the host there.
Yeah,
And
I remember.
Snoop had some problems, this, that, and the other, but it was such a moment just watching him, go by. But they had everyone stand back. They were like, please, everyone push back, move back. The champ is coming through. They still called him the champ.
Yeah.
I love that. It was
I
such
think
a
it was
moment.
at the theater near USC, I think.
Yeah, I believe you're right. Yes, that was such a moment. But that type of, his presence,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it was respect.
Respect.
Yeah.
Yes, and so it means a lot for you, I'm sure, to carry, the legacy and the respect that he holds, and for you and what you do.
I mean, I love my dad, but I respect myself because how he taught me to respect myself. So whether he was Ali or not, the impact he had on me as a father, I was going to respect myself as a woman.
I love that.
Period.
Period.
Yeah.
End of story.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful day right here, 104.7 The Drop, the People's Station for R&B and hip hop. My name is Sugar Bear. We got special guests here today for SugaBear's Community Corner, the eldest daughter of Muhammad Ali. Her name is Maryum Ali. Again, good morning and thank you for joining us. Also, Ayana Contreras is here. Thank you for being here, too, as well. There's a book signing. Now, I want to talk about this 20th anniversary edition of I Shook Up the World, a book that you wrote, correct?
Yes, I wrote a book 20 years ago called I Shook Up the World, The Incredible Life of Muhammad Ali. It's a children's picture book. It's like kind of an all-ages book. It's not like a C-Spot run. It's a little, the older kids, maybe elementary school age. And I wanted to just, write something to share his life in a fun way and great lessons for kids. I do a wonderful presentation for kids and I engage them because there's so many things to learn. He became a boxer because of something horrible that happened to him that he felt horrible as a kid. His first nice bike he ever had. It was $60. That was expensive back in the day.
Yeah.
And someone stole it, and he wanted to beat up the person who stole his bike. So he got into boxing.
Wow.
And I talk to kids like when bad things happen, there's some pearls of wisdom in that, and there's some things that can set you on a path if you just look at it a certain way, and that people didn't believe he would be anything. They said he was too skinny. They call them the haters now. I don't know if there's a new street word for haters, but people telling you can't do something. So there's so many lessons in his life that I share through this story.
I love that. And
Yeah.
the title, so I Shook Up the World, which is something that
I shook up the world.
I shook
yeah.
up the world,
yeah.
which I love that. Now, there's going to be is there a book signing?
There's a book signing this Saturday at Tattered Covered Bookstore. It's the Colfax Avenue location this Saturday, January 13th at 2 p.m. I give a really great presentation. I hope a lot of kids come because I like to engage them in conversation. I don't just like to talk to them.
Sure.
And so yeah, Tattered Covered Books. If you can't make it, you can find the book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And when you do the search, make sure, because the old book is still there, hardcover, maybe a used copy, but put I Shook Up the World 20th Anniversary Edition. This is the paperback edition, which is only like $10.99. The hardback was a little bit more expensive 20 years ago. But I'm just thankful that Simon & Schuster and Beyond Words decided to re-release it 20 years later.
20 years. And now, 20 years ago, what made you say, I need to write this? Because
I was working, when I was in college, went back to college, I was working at a daycare, and I would read books to kids, and I would sometimes change the words if they got bored. And they're like, do your words. And I said, I can speak to children pretty well. So, and then, I saw the books on him, children books on him, and it didn't capture his essence. So in this book, what I do is I take his tall tale poetry and illustrate that poetry. And I'm not the illustrator, man. A beautiful artist named Patrick Johnson illustrated it. So his things like, I'm so fast, I could play tennis by myself. Yeah. So I have a picture of him playing tennis on both sides of the tennis court. So it's fun as you're hearing the historical Ali and his whole history. I have these fun poems, his poems, I have to illustrate. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Illustrate.
Yes, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, once again, Tattered Covered Bookstore. It's
This Saturday.
This Saturday, 2526 East Colfax. And this is free to the public, which is awesome.
Free to the public, hope you can. I know it's limited books, so if you want a guaranteed seat, I think they have reservations. I don't know if they're full or not. But come on out,
Yeah, come say hello, get a book signed. I'm hoping to get one of those books. I mean, I would purchase one and support anyway.
Yes,
okay.
I got you.
And then your relationship or your father's relationship with MLK, and there's a prayer breakfast as well that you're going to speak
there's the MLK Peace Breakfast. I heard they've been doing this Peace Breakfast since 1992, somewhere in the 90s. And I was honored that a beautiful brother named Dr. Khalid El Hakim, he invited me along with Professor Griff of Public Enemy, who's also a multi-talented writer, producer, educator. So we're going to be having a discussion with Dr. El Hakim for the keynote segment. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm honored they're having me. And, MLK, my dad, they're both Capricorns. This is their birthday month of January. And they loved and respected each other. They did have different ideologies about how to deal with racism and oppression. My father was in the Nation of Islam at that time, and he converted to Orthodox Sunni Islam. But at that time, he was in the Nation, and they weren't about the nonviolence resistance. But what's interesting, they were nonviolent. They actually were. The Nation was nonviolent against white folks. They don't go out and hurt white folks. Right. They were just about self-sufficiency, their own economic base, and they were separatists, but they felt they were separatists because they were already being separated and treated unequal. And MLK, on the other hand, didn't really agree with that, but my father and him did have a respectful relationship. In 1964, there was an FBI wire report saying they were in contact and talking. Wow. They did a press conference together in Louisville for a housing event, a free equal housing event, and they did talk back and forth and really respected one another. They really did. They actually MLK sent my father a telegram in 1961 at his 7th professional fight with Jerry Quarry, saying, acknowledging him, saying, I want to meet you one day. You're a great role model. And my dad sent a telegram to him the second time MLK was in the Birmingham jail. Not the first time, the second time he went to jail there. So they did have a love and respect for one another.
That's a beautiful thing.
Respect.
All the stories, just hearing you talk about the
Yeah.
stories, I feel like I could talk to you or listen to
Yeah.
you tell these stories all day, and I'm sure you share a lot of them, or people share them with you even. in
Yeah,
fact.
that's funny you say that because I'm kind of working on something. I'll come. Hopefully, I'll come back to dinner with it where I'm telling these stories.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, this book was
Yes.
opened up to this page of that Louisville
Yes.
press conference. So I
Yes.
got a couple of quotes here.
Yes.
So your father says during the press conference with Martin Luther King Jr. in 1967, we're all black brothers. We use different approaches to everyday problems, to your point. But the same dog that bit him bit me. When we go out, they don't start asking if you're a Christian, a Catholic, a Baptist, or a Muslim. They just start whooping black heads. And King replies,
Come on.
yes, oh yes, we discussed our common problems and our common concerns. We are victims of the same system of oppression.
Yes.
Although our religious beliefs differ, we are still brothers.
I'm glad you're here because I've only heard certain quotes,
Oh,
and
wow.
clips, but I'm gonna screenshot that
Yeah.
whole piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is your sister's
That's
beautiful.
that's
She's been
wonderful.
bringing the history. I love it.
The same dog that bit me, that is profound. Like,
Yeah.
people don't
And what I
understand that.
love about them, they didn't let the press, because the press at that time was really trying to play that
Against each
divisive
other. Yeah.
game of the black folks over here believe that, and they're like, no, we're not doing that.
That's right.
You know, we're not, because like I said at the end, and it's interesting, at the end of MLK's life, he almost started sounding like he was in the nation, because
right.
you know his last sermon was going to be, America may go to hell. And that was because of the poverty situation and them not addressing these disparities in poverty. And he was such a scholar. I remember asking my father about him. He said he was the true activist. You know, I was an elite athlete and I used my platform, which was very powerful.
Indeed.
But this man, I'll encourage everyone, please. One of my favorite books is called The Radical King. And it's his most poignant speeches and essays. And I'm telling you, it's one of my favorite books. Because I said, I don't want to read a book about him. I want his words.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand. You know, they water his image down and they sanitize it. But this man was trying to break down the way capitalism really treats the masses. And he said, think about it. Why are 40 million people poor in this country? But he had, in addition to the Birmingham and Selma, which that gets featured, and that's beautiful, he was doing major things for economic development in Chicago and in Cleveland. And I mean, he brought millions of jobs, millions of income to these areas, SCLC and some of their economic development programs. Just masterful, which is why he was deemed the most dangerous Negro in the world by the FBI, because he was about to bring in all people of all races and colors on this journey, and he would have been able to do it. He would have been able to do it. He had the charisma, he had the intelligence, and he had the organization skills to do it. And his team had the organizational skills. So anyway, I know I love the man.
No, that's a beautiful thing.
And people should read that Radical King book or anything that really shows you who he really was. Because what we see on the commercials, and it's just it's beautiful, but he was more radical and way more effective in how we should address certain things right now, which most people are completely indifferent and aloof to. They're not even... I mean, we're so distracted with social media and craziness right now.
Yeah, the world we live in. You said water down. That's a great way to explain it. Like they water down the image of what he was. But of course, the Parade is happening. The event this on Monday and all of that.
Yeah, the Parade. I wish I could be here for it. I can't. But I heard there's an annual Parade. Like it's a march and a parade in Denver, and I encourage everyone to go out to that. I wish I could be here for that, but maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year. That would be awesome. We'll be out there as well. Make sure you look for the drop out there as well. Okay, so let's recap again what's happening. This book signing and the 20th anniversary of the
Tattered
book.
Covered Books bookstore this Saturday, 2 p.m., the Colfax Avenue location. And I'm not sure of the status. I know they're having the MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. Peace Breakfast at MSU.
Yes.
And so you go to msudenver.edu and see if you can get tickets, I suppose. I don't know if they're full or not.
Or at least information at the very least. And we'll post some as well.
And Google MLK Parade, and you'll find the information for the parade on Monday. But Denver's beautiful. Thank you again for having me here.
It's our pleasure.
And,
it's an honor to have you here. Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
And what you're doing and how you honor his legacy and creating your own just the same.